Revolution Radio proudly presents live from Phoenix, Arizona, the Truth Denied Talk Radio with host Roxy Lopez. Join us here for topics you won't hear about on mainstream news, such as chemtrails, GMOs, nutrition, and conspiracy facts regarding your personal sovereignty. Humanity is 7 billion strong. We are the majority. And now, live from the Valley of the Sun, your host, Roxy Lopez.
Hey, it's the Truth Tonight Talk Radio. It's Roxy Lopez. I am at not even in a remote area enough to do this show right now, and we're going to bring in our guest this evening. Hopefully, I'll get through this in the next half hour. My apologies. I'm not even. I had an emergency today, so
hello.
And my phone is ringing off the hook.
Hello.
Your guest has joined you.
Okay, our guest is joining us. Thank you. And like I said, Emily, will you do me a favor? Hi, Emily. I had an emergency, and I'm not even at home right now, so I don't have any of the notes or anything like that for the show. It's the first time this has ever happened. So I'm here in the middle of a crowded place getting prescriptions. Not for me, for my animals. Yep. And, I had it's one of those days. And so what's happening is they called me on my cell phone at the station. And what I want to do is I want to set this up for you so that you can take off for probably the next 20 minutes if you can, and go ahead and let's cover this topic, which is, of course, why disclosure is such a non-disclosure, I should say, is such a dangerous thing for our entire planet. And you really have a good feel for that, Emily. So could you explain it to us what the cost of non-disclosure is for us?
Sure, I'm delighted, Roxy, and sure, I can talk about it for half an hour, actually a lot longer than that. And so you just deal with what you have to deal with, and I appreciate your giving me the opportunity to wax whatever. And thank you for inviting me. Sure, I love to come here.
Absolutely, Emily. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show. And for the guests who are listening, the listeners who are tuning in tonight, you have heard Emily before. Emily, you've talked about some really fascinating ideas when it comes to our planet, and you've even addressed two suns, you've addressed the moon and so forth. But let's go straight for it. And why don't we go ahead and discuss really what is so important, that set this up for us, Emily, so that we can understand. Okay?
Sure, will do. And we'll talk about the consequences and costs and effects of the non-disclosure of ET life. And why did it happen? Well, basically, historically, non-disclosure exists because of treaties that Western governments signed with the Anunnaki and the Greys since the 1950s. There was the Greada Treaty in 1954 with Eisenhower, and there's another treaty, the Tau 9, that was signed in 2006. Other ET cultures may have some input into those treaties. We've never seen the treaties. They've never been publicized to our people, so we don't know what's in them. Okay, but what I can see from just what's in the alternative media is that other cultures besides the Anunnaki don't seem to have any negotiating stance with our government. They're just onlookers. Now, since about the end of the Civil War, things have been changing. Our republic only really lasted a little less than 100 years. And true wisdom is being eradicated through a process of stupefaction and top-down policies and procedures. So ignorance is what leaders pander to because ignorance is profitable. They like money that ignorance produces. So when wisdom began to get plowed under by leadership, because they were stupefying all of us so we would follow their rules, what usually happens next is anarchy takes over, and leaders lead from behind curtains of secrecy rather than openly. Western civil culture, especially English-speaking culture, have been in anarchy since World War I. And what created anarchy was when the corporate conglomerates began ruling from behind corporate curtains. They were not detected nor corrected, nor lawfully even correctable. And what this means is certain positive features of leadership have been missing from our civil society for a while now. Officially today, there is no acknowledgement or accountability for official outcomes or effects of legislation. Tsunami on Japan? Too bad. Okay? Gulf of Mexico polluted? Too bad. Collateral damage to children in war? Too bad. Water table pollution by fracking? Oh well. Poisoning the soil by chemtrails? Shrug. That's all we get. Federalists legislate laws and more laws and more laws. There are 2 to 3 million federal statutes now, but they never record the results or effects or outcomes of legislation, and neither does the media report on problems that legislation creates. Why not? Because by law, industry and corporations are exempt from being indicted for violating common laws against harm, deceit, and waste. Since when? Since administrative codes and corporate statutes took over and established privatized revenue-enhancing statute agencies where civil law used to function in the past. And so what happens to us is the same thing that happened to Rome. Society's social attainments have ceased. Keeping the law becomes the only obsession of law. Tolerating vice and disease and famine becomes popular. Caring becomes a voluntary act, not a social one. Survival reverts to random acts of kindness. And coping becomes problematical because nobody can plan anything. Manifesting prosperity occurs for predatory individuals who compete and climb over each other for profits and profits. Okay, and let me talk about profits and profits, okay, because they're the same thing. The profit that a company gets in money is the same that the profit, P-R-O-P-H-E-T, that is created in a church group, because the prophet is the one making predictions that come true. So instead of having wisdom for the past century, what we get is tricks and rules and harassment and proceedings and abuse and assumptions and propaganda and fraud. These things take over official functions. And the effect is people are not allowed to realize what they need to know in order to convey social values and safety and harmony and progress. Okay. And this is what the media has done in spades, especially since the 1990s. The mainstream media decided that news belongs in the entertainment department and needs to generate revenue, so the quality of the history that's written every day in our newspapers has been deteriorating ever since that decision was made. So the real function of the media is to inform people so we can plan. So what was possible, what could have happened, is that the anarchy caused by corporate corruption would result in chaos. And what is chaos? In Scripture, it said every man's hand is against his neighbor, okay? And war is everywhere, okay? But for me, I'm looking around, it's been a century of anarchy, and we're not in chaos. It didn't happen. Every man's hand was not raised against his neighbor. And recently, when Obama blinked and the war against Syria was averted, David downed Goliath once more. Napoleon was routed once more, this time by Vladimir Putin. And the empire once more is thwarted that profits off wars and revolutions. We still have a modicum of social obligations, and people still, despite the lack of governmental responsibility and accountability, people still mostly act in a civil manner. The people, us ourselves, have halted the slide into annihilation. And Armageddon may not come now because people themselves and ourselves and us and our families do not want it, okay? When Russia was able to outmaneuver Obama on Syria and shut down Obama's war, that shows that the people don't want war. And it was a major victory because Russia is a broken mass of ruin, and the U.S. is still a dangerous hierarchy. So David knocked out Goliath once more. So the consequence of non-disclosure is that the people of the world have become wiser than their leaders. The people
Is that right?
The people say, hell no, we don't want any more wars, especially wars for profits. But now we, the people, must catch up with what's actually true, what's happening, what's going on, and this is a challenge. And this is where we are right now, figuring out what's actually going on. What's going on in the sky is that astronomers are so busy looking at their computer sky maps, they don't look at the sky much, okay? I worked as a digital image corporate trainer for Xerox Corporation some years ago. And what is true is scientists have not been trained to know the difference between a photograph and a digital image. And the difference is a digital image is a veritable movie of data. It's not a single image. There's a movie in every digital image that astronomers know nothing about. Now, satellites take thousands upon thousands of images, but the scientists looking at the images do not know how to interpret pixels. So they miss most of the content in the images, and they believe whatever they've been told the images mean. Now, at this point, if you start looking at the images and start looking at the background, the images don't make any sense at all because physical data that I'm getting does not verify or validate the current astronomical model, not one bit. What I see does not make sense if you're thinking about the blue-white sun that we called Old Sol with the Soho LASCO satellites parked around it, and the mantle is gone, and the top is all black, and it's got a crack in it, and it's being hit by comets all the time. That's not what's going on in our sky, baby. That's not the same at all. So I'm also what the U.S. government labels as a remote viewer, okay? And they pay people to do this, honest to God. I'm a remote listener, okay? And I was trained by Monroe Institute tapes and programs and a tone generator to participate in telepathic sharing in thought groups. Thus, I have been able to hear what the guys out there in the cosmos think is happening to our planet at this time, okay? And, you know, telepathy is nothing but prayer, okay? That's what prayer is telepathy. So today when I get data that makes absolutely no empirical sense, I put on my remote listener hat and I yell out as if I were praying to God, hey, you guys, what's going on out there? The sun's got land mass around it, and the moon's bathed in ultraviolet lights instead of being in black and empty space. Hey, what's up? And that's when I get an explanation from out there about how Earth is now configured with Nibiru and companioned with Nemesis. There are some links in the chat room, okay?
And I'll get them in there too as well. Again,
all right.
Periodically during the show, you can point at which ones you'd like people to follow along with.
They're just for browsing. They're just for browsing. You can browse those whenever while I'm just talking. You know,
but
that's fine.
Continue.
Okay. So anyway, what I hear from out there as a remote listener is not what is in today's newspapers and magazines, believe me. And the hundreds and hundreds of webcam images and NASA images that I re-render from Western U.S. observatories confirm and proclaim that what the subjected ETs are telling me telepathically is what is true. Not Scientific American, not NASA, not ESA, not JAXA, nor Sky and Telescope, nor National Geographic. No, their beautiful, slick, photographic illustrations are no longer real. I'm qualified to speak as a journalist because my graduate degree from the communication department of a major university is in group problem solving and conflict analysis. So I have the credentials to speak out, even if I am technically retired at this point. So don't tell me I don't know what I'm talking about or that I don't have authority to speak out against deceit and lies. Media are spouting mythologies and complicated layers of false information. They're one and all telling fables to the public, made up stuff. We the people know, because we see UFI in the skies all the time, that we are affected by extraterrestrials, even though we're not allowed to know the history of those ET interventions. History is there, okay? There are the Sumerian records, and Zechariah Sitchin isn't the only translator. There's the Bible, Genesis chapter 6, and the book of Ezekiel. There's two other books with the signature of the sovereign, the planetary sovereign on it, the Oahspe and the Urantia book. All of these books hold the signature of our planetary sovereign, whose name is Yahweh, the Tetragrammaton. I bet you didn't know that either, did you? Of course not. The media will never tell you that. So the powers that be want to pretend and hold the Bible as the single iconic idol for the people to read and worship. But that's not reasonable when, in fact, there are at least two other authorized scriptures that are practically unknown. And both of those other books, the Oahspe and the Urantia book, speak of life on other planets, on interstellar travel, and the progress of not merely creation, but also of evolution. Yahweh had these books written so that we might know what is true when we have absolutely no other source of true information, which is now. The book of Revelation might as well be the front page of any newspaper today. It does a better job of describing reality than your local newspaper, because your newspaper just talks about the garden club and the local zoning board and who got arrested and what the next building project for the county is going to be. That's not news. That's all what we call demonized. Well, what's demonized? People don't know what demonized is. I asked the guys out there, what's demonized? And they said, when natural conversations, natural replies and responses and retorts and questions and issues are not allowed to percolate, but instead a heavy agenda is imposed top-down from some hierarchy. That is a situation that one can call demonized. Propaganda is demonized because there is no natural response to it. Advertising is demonized because there's no criticism allowed within it. Even the political process becomes demonized when bribery and manipulation of the process itself unseats all the voters who vote. Even Robert's Rules of Order is half demonized because it suppresses everybody in the room and only lets one person talk. Wherever there is no honest input allowed into a conversation, that communication is demonized. And with the mainstream media spouting and reciting the top-down hierarchical propaganda, the people who want to know what is true are doing is fleeing and boycotting mainstream media and going to the alternative media. And as you know, one newspaper after another who hold to official line is going bankrupt. And it couldn't happen to a more deserving bunch of rags, one at a time. The Washington Post has bit the dust, okay? And I'm just waiting for New York Times to follow suit. People are sick and disgusted with lies. Roxy, you are here because you are sick and disgusted with lies. Non-disclosure has taught us, the people, that we are being lied to. It's as simple as that. So now what are we going to do about it? So let's get clear what the truth actually is. I have just for the benefit of this show, put a new book together. Come, let us make man in our image. It is at Amazon.com, and I call it Anthropology. And it's a 200,000-year history of our planet in only 113 pages, but with 400 photographs. I just got my copy in the mail today, Roxy. So you can get that at Amazon.com.
And I can't wait to get it. And definitely we'll have that advertised for you on the Truth Tonight as well. You know, something very interesting that you're talking about, it's a new attitude, as far as I'm concerned, with what you are talking about with the cost of non-disclosure. And that new attitude that I'm hearing you talk about is that this has only opened the doors for us as a civilization, globally really, open the doors for us to seek truth in probably a fashion, I know for me personally, more than I ever have, to really, really look at what the truth of history and even current day, as you described with, you know, major tabloids that had their peak moments already. And experience and existence as far as being the sum, you know, the on all truth, supposedly. And at this point, what this allows us to do, which you are completely spot on, and I thank you for it. What we're doing now is we are questioning everything as a civilization, and that used to be called crazy. And they still are calling us crazy, but it's not so crazy anymore when alternative media is taking the lead in exposure and transparency for the people. So you're making some awesome points, and I think that it also helps because I know during the show tonight we are going to discuss people are very interested in your subject matter with Nibiru and, you know, our planet and our solar system and where we're going to and why NASA and, like you mentioned, JAXA, which is the Japanese Space Agency, and others are covering up. And just to be clear, they really are covering up what is happening, correct? If they're not just mistaken, they're covering up what they think is happening in our solar system. Is that correct?
Yes, and what the astronomers of the astronomy observatories are doing on the West Coast that I monitor and I re-render their webcam images and put them up all the time, these observatories are now encrypting their webcam images, which is so funny, but I still catch clean copies. And I'm still putting them up. And what is absolutely true and undeniable is that the sun that we have is not in black empty space, and the moon that we have is not in black empty space. So let the scientists now tell us, okay, if they're not in black empty space, guys, what are they doing?
Well, and can you, you know, and if it gets us to the break, we can continue it on the other side of it. But can you explain what you mean for the layman in the audience, you know, in the audience here? Can you explain what black space means anyway? Because I personally don't know what the difference is. Can you explain that for us?
Sure. Pictures of the moon taken in 2009 or in Google, take a look at Google Moon, okay? And you have a picture of a round ball, and what's behind it? Black. That's it, black. There's nothing but black. There's no color. Okay. Take a picture of the moon right now, okay, with your digital camera or your night shot or whatever you want, and increase the light by 25 to 33%, and blam, the sky fills up with color. The sky just fills up with color. How does that happen all of a sudden? Where did all that color come from?
You know, I must admit, people, this is actually kind of fun. Emily, I'm glad that you and I talked about the beginning of the show, because I have never had this happen where I've been in a veterinarian clinic and a prescription, picking up prescriptions, and then driving all the way back home with a animal in the car and unloaded it, and the whole 9 yards. And we've done this all while we're broadcasting.
That's great. That's great.
It's very cool.
Versatility, yeah.
Versatility, yeah. I've never quite done that, but I'm very grateful that you and I talked earlier today. So, you know, with that in mind, let's jump back into that. You know, that's a real curiosity, because I do take the photos of the moon, and you're right, when you bump up, there's like all this color in there. So is this color that's out there, as we just asked before we hit the break, you know, what is that color? And I have a couple of quickies. Is the color just an illusion? Is the color atmosphere, changes in the atmosphere, more light in the atmosphere? What is the color?
Okay, the colors that are coming at us are from the brown dwarf star Nemesis, which is the companion to Nibiru. Now, remember from the book of Ezekiel in the Bible, when Ezekiel was talking about wheels within wheels?
Yes.
Aha, okay. The brown dwarf star Nemesis is the shape of an inner tube. It's called a torus, which is the shape of a wheel. And on the inside of it, it's got more circles, okay? And Nibiru is also a torus, the shape of a wheel. And it is completely wrapped around our planet now. We are a beach ball inside of a torus. And that's benign. It's a good situation. Nobody freak out. There's a good reason for why we're here and why this is happening to us. And that's why our moon is now nestled in a huge field of green, predominantly green, and that's why our skies are a lot more vivid in color than ever before, because Nemesis provides light for Nibiru in the ultraviolet range. Now, unlike what the scientists have been telling us for a long time, dark matter is not unlit. Dark matter has colors in the ultraviolet range, and those colors are magenta, cyan, and yellow. Okay, so the colors we get off of Nemesis, the brown dwarf star, that show up behind our moon, because our moon's parked on Nemesis, are vivid colors of flowers. It's just really beautiful. And our planet is being bathed, at least in part, because we're covered in part, we're being bathed with ultraviolet light that we never experienced before. And it's going to have an effect on all biology on the planet. Now, that's why the government has this little expression, global warming. Okay, they're not really telling you the story. Okay.
Do they know the story? I mean, I just have to ask that.
I think they do.
You think they're onto it? And is this, by the way, just to interject, you know, you and I both get tons of emails about celestial bodies, one of which is the moon. And in the past 3 years, the moon appears to look different and egg-shaped and bigger and different. Is this part of the reason why it's appearing to look even a different color?
Yes. Absolutely. Not only that, but it's 10,000 miles closer. That's why they call it a supermoon. Okay, they call it a supermoon because it's much closer. But the moon that we thought was ours really belongs to the Anunnaki. Yahweh, the sovereign, designed that moon 125,000 years ago, and it was built in Orion and towed here. Okay, and it's an architectural sphere, absolutely. And anybody who has spent any time with the Google Moon simulation, if you bring it up close, you can see the struts. You can see that the openings are doorways. You can see the conservatory at the top. And if you turn it around to the left side, the lower left side's got 2 engines, and the upper right side's got their power generation station and a bay for spacecraft repair. The back of it is like the small end of an egg, and there's a lot of massive rocks back there and balconies, and you can actually go hiking on the moon. The moon is not the size that NASA says. It's not the distance that NASA says. And it's been peopleed for a long time. So, but it's not ours. It belongs to the Anunnakis.
So is the moon artificial? It's not. It's
correct.
It's not. Okay, and that's been a subject matter that's been going on for 50 years. You know, do you think that with that knowledge of knowing this, that were we ever supposed to go to the moon? Is this the reason why we've never gone back? I guess I should
Of course,
say.
It's not ours. We don't have any rights to it. We didn't build it. And,
even though it's in a space treaty.
Well, but we don't know the
International
terms of the
Space Treaty.
We don't know the terms of the space treaty is our problem because we've never been told. Okay? And the moon at this point is a jalopy. I don't think...
Oh, it's old. It's old. It's worn out. Is that what you're saying?
Can you imagine a planetoid, architectural planetoid, 125,000 years old? It's an old jalopy. It needs refurbishing. And so that's...
So are they going to take it out? Or are they going to take it away? I mean, they can't really do that, right? Because if the moon just disappears... I got a report yesterday, Emily, that was so bizarre because it matched some of the reports that I've been getting in emails. And this is what the report basically says. It says that people are looking up at the sky and seeing the moon, and let's call it the eastern night sky, and, you know, a nice big full moon. And then the next night, the moon is not out. And they look for it everywhere, and it's a dark night. And then the next night, they go out again, and the moon's not out again, which is very unusual because you and I both know that especially when there's a full moon, it cycles. And so it is out, you know, appearing in the night sky every night for a good week and a half.
Yeah.
So I thought it was very interesting that people actually were reporting this, and now it is quite a few people reporting it.
Well, because people realize that there's something going on in the sky that's not going on in the computer maps. So they're out looking at the sky with their cameras. I get pictures from people all the time, and they're marvelous. I just love them. But, yes, the moon is parked in a leading edge of Nemesis, and if you look at new pictures of it, there are still human figures you can identify, but mostly what the astronomers are doing is putting up old pictures, pre-2009 pictures of the moon, and pretending that they're new pictures. They put up old pictures of eclipses and pretend they're new pictures. I catch that all the time at LPOD, the lunar photograph of the day, and APOD, astronomer photo of the day, that they put up old pictures and pretend they're new ones. That's one of the gambits they're following. So, no, the moon, I think, because Yahweh's the designer of it, and he was responsible for it being built, I think he's probably going to keep it and rebuild it. I see a lot of excitement over that.
Now, does that also mean that everything that has been proselytized about the moon
coming, of course, from astronomers and space agencies. Does the moon really have a value here? In other words, does it really control tides? Does it really control water on the planet? Where did all that come from? And if it does, was it designed to do that?
That comes from the reality that there is a magnet situated on the moon that has an effect on our planet. Okay? We have, there are magnets that exist in our planet that we as a culture are not aware of in the north and in the south, which actually determine the rotation of the planet, and the moon is the point where one of those magnets exists, and it's probably the reason for the tides.
Okay.
It's a matter of technology. Just like the sun that we have now, which is situated on this enormous landmass and has texture all around it and all kinds of activity all around it. It's a technological sun. It's not a natural anything. From what I have been able to discern after hundreds of pictures, is that it's a wormhole with fiber optics coming out of it at us. And that's why it doesn't harm its environment. Its environment is in black light, and so a white light, small sun isn't going to harm a large black light environment. Yeah, oh, yes.
Okay.
Go ahead. Scientists think that dark matter is unlit, but it is not unlit. It is lit in ultraviolet, and therefore it is still discernible and visible once you clean all the white light out of an image. The black light colors are there, and you can see what's there.
Okay. And, very quickly, I have a question from the chat room, and we might want to address this, and I think you did in a way already, but just to calm people down. Rio Grande asked, what, if any, significant events can we expect because of this? So are we expecting any Earth cycle events or any catastrophe here or earthquakes as we shift and move away from our vicinity in which we've been located for quite some time? Is there anything that's coming?
Yes, there's a lot that's coming. First of all, March 1st, Nibiru, Nibiru, you've seen a picture of it, it's got these wings, these white wings, a wake around it like a boat has a wake. And on March 1st, its wake caught up with us when it was slowing down to meet our velocity. Its wake caught up with them, and it made Noah's flood look like a birthday party because Nibiru got slammed with its own ice and water and lost most of its population at that time. Okay, and that's what we call its karma, because its leadership defaulted in ways that affected our planet in ways. So it was hit with a karma, but there's a remnant of people on Nibiru left in the millions. Okay, there's still a lot of people left. All right, our karma is going to catch up with us too, because we have been a warmongering society, and we have wasted a lot of people, a lot of souls, and so we've got a lesson coming too. But let's not worry about that. Let's not worry about that. Let's look at the future. The future is we are now covered around us with a black light torus that at a distance looks like a field of stars. We are no longer a blue marble naked out there in space. We are now covered by this inner tube that looks like a field of stars. We're invisible. So the ETs that have been victimizing animals and humans and abductions and all of that are going to have to decrease because they're going to have trouble finding us, which is good news. Now, we are in a relationship like two wheels on an axle. One torus on one side and one on the axle, and another torus on the other side of the axle. And the two wheels are spinning counterclockwise or clockwise. I'm not familiar. And that spin is creating a movement out of the Milky Way as fast as they can go. And they have to get out of the Milky Way as fast as they can go. And the reason is, everybody knows, everybody has seen from the Soho Lascaux pictures of the old sun that we left behind also, that sun is deteriorating very fast. And that means that sun is old, okay? Also, the Milky Way has been expanding for a long, long time. Well, what happens to a balloon when you expand it past its ability to be elastic anymore? It pops. Okay, so what Yahweh determined is that the Milky Way has been expanding so long it's due to pop. And so he is getting his DNA life forms out of the Milky Way as fast as he can, and he's using these two torus wheels on the axle of gravity spinning to get us out of the Milky Way, and he's going to place us in a different and undeveloped galaxy. We're going to start over. We're going to survive. What's interesting about Nemesis, because in the chat room you've got a link to Nemesis that you can look at some pictures. But I don't have any close-ups there, and where I get close-ups of Nemesis is from the Lick Observatory, all-sky cameras about 10 or 11 at night. I get some beautiful close-ups. And there are human figures. They look just like us. They look just like us. It's amazing. And so I asked my cosmic informants, how come they look just like us? How come they're not ETs? And what they tell me is Yahweh, the God of the Jews, has his own brand of DNA code. Okay? And so he applies it in different frequencies and at different levels and with different elements. And so all of his hominids look the same in terms of, a head, 2 arms, 2 legs, a chin and nose, 2 eyes. They all look alike, but they're not made of the same stuff, and their particles don't vibrate at the same rate, and their consciousness is very, very different. But anyway, Yahweh is taking all of his DNA samples out of the Milky Way, and we're going to start over in a new galaxy. Now, that's just like Star Trek.
It is. And we're going to start over in a new galaxy with home still being Earth, correct?
Home still being Earth for the third-dimensional physicals, with Nibiru still being home for the 5th to 9th dimensional Nibiruans, and Nemesis still being home to the light people up there who look just like we do, except their cells are made of neon and helium, and they spread out a lot more because the particles vibrate at a much higher rate, and so the particles are further apart, and so their bodies are spread out, and some of them can be 10 miles tall and just look like an ordinary human. But that's because their nuclear particle situation is different. But they're still people. They're just spread out people. Spread out people.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting, very interesting, indeed. I'm looking at something. I would like people to follow me here. If they can please, those who are listening, just go to the sciencefree.org. Sciencefree.org, LNN files. And I'm looking at number 2 on the list. Taken June 24th, 2013. And this is fascinating to me. Go ahead and if you notice on the bottom, it says TDD 2013. I took this photo.
You did?
Yes, and that's the Truth Tonight 2013. Yes, I took this photo. So what I want to know is how that ended up in here.
I don't know now. Give me the date of that photo again. Oh,
June 24th.
June 20, because I have one here from Roxy.
It's the index of LNN files.
Yeah.
And it's the second one down, June 24th, 2013.
Okay.
And I looked at the photo and thought how familiar it looked, and then I realized there's a copyright on the bottom of it.
Oh,
so,
no.
Yeah, and I thought, no wonder it looks so familiar, because I shot that photo during the Venus transit. And what happened, for anybody who's looking at this photo, I should try to find the original during the show, but what happened is I was using a welder's mask in front of the camera as a lens because it was so bright.
Yeah.
And after I downloaded the photos, seeing these what appears to be half moons around the sun blew my mind because it was just very accurate. It wasn't anything you could see with your own eyes simply because it was so bright during that Venus transit. But at that moment, I really decided to look into it further and ran this photo by a few people. But I'm just wondering how it got into your stack.
Well, it's something you put up, and I just played with it because it was fascinating.
That's pretty accurate, what you've got. I mean, that's pretty close to the original. And I guess why I'm pointing this one out, it's funny that I actually clicked on this one. Others around the world who took photos that day also got very similar photos. A lot of people didn't use any lenses, so they weren't able to, everything just kind of washed out into white light. But what are the bodies around the sun here that appear to be 1, 2, 3 half moons?
Well, something, if I were to do that, if I were to re-render that photo right now, it would look completely different.
Okay.
Because what I have failed to do is to focus on, to block out all the light, block out the light and focus on the background. And so give me a few days and I'll send you a new rendering of it. I don't like this one.
Okay, great. No, that would be great. Well, I wanted people to kind of follow me over here. Now, there's another one for June 24th as well. It says the Lawrence Hall of Science. Again, the link is
now, I have the year first. So the year is 2012 or 2013, and then comes the month. And then, so I'm looking at June.
You've got day, month, and year, and this one that I'm looking at is the 24th of June, 2013, and people can easily follow this because it's the fourth photo down in the index of the LNN files. And I wanted to know what that was.
Let's see. The one with RR?
Yes, it's in the sciencefree.org LNN files.
Yeah.
And it's the fourth one down.
And it's 12/10/01 UCB, 1718 RR. Is that the one?
It is the name of the file is 121001 UCB. The date, or when it was last modified, is 24 June 2013.
Okay. And that's the sun just coming down to set, and what you see is the landmass under it. That's actually there's a large field, and there are often a lot of people on that field that are right under the sun. It's sort of like a play field for activities or something. I'm not sure. Yeah, but that's just
now. Where was this picture? Being it says the Lawrence Hall of Science. Where was the picture? Was this a satellite photo?
No, this is just a webcam photo.
Webcam.
Okay, and it was taken at 5:18 in the afternoon. on October the 1st. And it's just an ordinary picture. I get these all the time about 5:18 in the afternoon, when just as the sun is about to set. And you can almost always see the landmass that's directly under it. Almost always see it.
And there's two celestial bodies in this photo as well, so I'm not quite sure. There's one like almost directly in the middle of the shot in the sky, and then there's another one to the left, which appears again to be like the sort of half moon. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, and then, okay. So, anyone that wants to go paging through these photos, I would suggest to do so, because there's a lot of very interesting photos, and I really want the audience to do that as well, especially those who actually have been taking photos, Emily, because they can compare some of the photos that are in this, this Ellen files to their own, because they're, a lot of people are just taking photos with digital cameras. And
well, let me tell you how to process these photos so you get similar outcome. Okay.
Okay.
When I get a photo, a webcam, the first thing I do is change the number of pixels per inch, because they're all set for 72, and 72 just really doesn't tell you much. So you change the scale from 72 to 288 or 300. That's the first thing you do, is change the scale. Okay. Then you scale it as a square. You always scale it as a square, because black light, everything is all spread out. And so by scaling it as a square, you're scrunching it together so you can actually see the lines of something. All right, so things become recognizable. The next thing you do is you remove 83 to 87% of the hue saturation. You take out most of the color, because in these pictures there's so much ultraviolet light coming at us. If you don't take out most of the color, all you get is solid blue, and you can't see anything. So take out 83 to 87% of the hue saturation. And then you go to contrast. And then you maximize contrast. You take out all the light, completely take out all the light, and then very slowly you start bringing the light back in from the left, from zero. You bring the light back in until you can see something. And then you can start playing with it, so you can see more and more. A little more light, a little less contrast. A little more light, a little less contrast. And that's how I do these pictures. Every single one of them I do exactly the same. Because, there was a learning curve involved. And I figured it out. So that's how. And if you want to write to me, send me an email, and I'll walk you through this process. No problem. I'd like to have everybody in the country doing this with whatever webcam is near them. I have a webcam in Sweden where they don't have much chemtrails, and the results are very, very different, because they get even more color than we do. Everything's in bright primary kindergarten colors in Sweden. It's really cool. My informant from the Netherlands sent me some pictures, all in black light, of a temple that was just mind-blowing. It was so detailed.
All right, and we're back, and hey, I want to thank all the listeners for hanging in there. What a great show, very inspirational as well. I mean, this is quite different when we don't have the big doom and gloom. And listen, I just need to make a special announcement for Revolution Radio. Revolution Radio has over 50 hosts. We're trying to go full-time, 365 days of the week, 24/7, with talk of the truth, basically, of everything that's going down on the planet. As Emily had said in the first hour, of what seems to be happening on the planet, that we demand the truth, and alternative radio and alternative media seem to be taking the lead as far as credibility. And So with Revolution Radio, we have to thank all of our listeners because we are supported by the listeners. We could not do this with the amount of money that it costs for Mike Ringley, who is Night Hawk, of course, who owns the entire station. There's no way we couldn't do it because we self-promote from inside the station. We don't have external corporate advertising dollars. Okay, so and the only reason why we don't have that, people, is so that we can not be controlled. This is not controlled media. So I just want to remind everyone that your donations go far, and so far, after the last couple of years, you've kept us live on the air. If you enjoy our show and you want to continue to keep this free speech going forward and moving forward and growing bigger and bigger all the time, please continue to donate. And like I said, it doesn't have to be a big donation. When you can, if you can, give. And the archives as well, if you want to subscribe at freedomslips.com to the archives, you can do a small subscription, small donation, and it'll be open to 50 shows, over 50 shows a day. I don't know anywhere in the world that you can go for 50 shows a day for a couple of bucks. So anyway, I want to thank all of you who are part of our team because we do include you, the listenership, as part of Revolution Radio. So I want to thank you. Emily, we were talking about this beautiful place, this picture, and you just sent it to me. I'm going to drop the link into the chat room. People, you've got to take a look at this. It is absolutely gorgeous. Now, tell us what we're looking at in this photo.
You're looking at the center of a planetoid that's shaped like a truck tire. Okay? So when Ezekiel talked about wheels within wheels, here we have a wheel, and we have some kind of a sphere in the middle of the wheel, and the light color, there's white and a pale blue is some kind of water or something, and the blue is some kind of atmosphere or something. I don't know what's what, but that is a beautiful picture of Nibiru. And if you look around in it, kind of with your eyes, just kind of scan into some of the detail, you see there are structures in there, and maybe they're being flooded by water. I don't know. There are structures all over the place, and that's Nibiru.
Now, just to be clear, what I am looking at here, just to be clear, is the only part that is the sky is the blue part, correct? These other structures, domes and things like that, and what appear to be homes, that's the Earth, correct?
The black on the bottom is Earth.
Yes, okay. So when we're looking
the blue is Nibiru in the sky.
All of the blue.
All of the blue. Nibiru is only blue. And it's only different shades of blue.
Oh, it's huge.
Oh, it's wrapped around us. Can you imagine a planet big enough to be wrapped around our planet? It's like a tire, an inner tube that's got a beach ball in the middle of it, and we're the beach ball.
Okay, so it's all around us. So well, now I'm confused. But you can help me out. I know you can. So when we're looking out into the sky, and and some of these people are sending in pictures of small celestial bodies that they see out there, that's not Nibiru.
No way. And Nibiru
covers the whole sky. See it. It's so big.
So big you can't see it. Right. It's just everywhere. Now, if you want to start sending me some of these pictures so I can re-render them and send them back to you and show you what's actually in them, I'll scrub out all the white light so you just see what's in black light.
Okay. And I'll start to do that.
Good. And then I'll be happy to do that.
Okay, great. And then back. And I'm going to get your picture over there, Wingman. I'll get your also your question. I'm sorry, from the chat room. I'll get to that in just a moment, I promise. Now, tell me about this because we've got the whole NASA cover up going on in our country. I don't know if you're aware of this, but apparently, and I did an article on it, and I left it up to the people, and it turned out to be a crock. But basically, it was this woman named Patty Broussard, who was a NASA whistleblower expert, warned of a coming catastrophic event that was supposed to happen, I believe, August 12th. It never did. We were supposed to lose sight of the sun because it would be buried in thick clouds. There would be lightning bolts coming down everywhere, blah, 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 blah. We'd have to get Faraday cages and water converter kits and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But,
yeah, I know.
Yeah. And, but what's bizarre about this person, I had an insider actually send me a note, we'll call it, letting me know that Patty Broussard isn't really a woman. It's really her brother who used to work at NASA, who's pretending to be his sister, Patty Broussard. That's one of the things that I got. But the bigger picture is this. I have her Facebook page, or his, or whatever.
Okay.
The person does sound like a male, but, some women have lower voices. I know I do. But listen to this. People are still believing that this Patty Broussard is a whistleblower when nothing that this woman is saying has come true.
That's sad.
It's very sad. And that's what I want to address at this very moment. I want to address people that when you see whistleblowers coming forward that claim they worked for NASA, talking about catastrophes and doom and gloom and the end of the world and such, believe me, and I think my guest Emily Cragg will agree with me here, if these people really had the goods on the planet's going to blow up on August 12, 2013, which is already passed, I don't think that person would even be able to make 20 internet radio interviews.
Right. There is a hierarchy. There is a sovereign. There are powers that be who control the planet. Obviously, otherwise, how in the world did our planet become a beach ball inside of an inner tube opposite a brown dwarf star on an axle of gravity spinning out of this galaxy? Somebody's in charge. There's somebody where the buck stops. And the somebody that the buck stops at is obviously interested in our survival, whoever they are. I don't know what level they are. I don't know who they are. Whatever.
That would be nice. That would be nice.
But I mean, they have finessed a switch in sun and moon circumstances, and 99.9999% of the population didn't even notice. Now, that's pretty amazing. Nobody noticed that we got a different sun and that our moon is 10,000 miles closer, and that there's okay. So whoever is doing the engineering.
People are noticing that the sun appears to be hotter. People are noticing that there's something really funky going on with the moon. And like I said before, at least people have noticed, but they just can't put their finger on it, and they don't have the exact. And I've got a question from Wingman out there in the UK, and he or she is asking for you as a guest. Yeah. Have you noticed in the last 5 years cumulus clouds are much rarer, certainly here in the UK. So, okay, can you? Good. And is it a good thing? Why are we seeing less and less of? And by the way, the UK. I just want to let you know, same thing in the US. So you're not alone. Why is that happening?
Now, cumulus clouds are natural. Okay. And we now have artificially manipulated clouds, and so we don't see as many natural ones. Where I live, the clouds that we have quite often are cloaked vehicles. I see clouds with faces in them. I see clouds with people climbing up and down, and I see all kinds of weird stuff in clouds. And that's because between Operation Bluebeam and the Anunnaki hierarchy, who are into making us aware of their presence, our clouds are being manipulated. So we have fewer natural clouds.
Okay,
that was weird stuff going on. Yeah.
And for those who don't know what Project Bluebeam is, it was set up as a conspiracy theory initially that claims that NASA is attempting to implement a new age religion with an antichrist and a new world order, a second coming, and basically a false invasion, I guess, a faux invasion. It links into that. So why did they create Project Bluebeam? I mean, what was the deal with that, and are they going to use that?
Oh, it's one of the toys in their pocket. They've got a gazillion toys in their pocket, and they're trying all kinds of things to get control over what the Anunnaki are controlling. All right, our guys are always very competitive. And the Anunnaki gave us certain technologies and certain techniques, and so our government is doing all kinds of projects trying to second guess and trying to beat them at their own game and trying to manipulate the situation to favor our side, without realizing that what is needed is cooperation between the different, it's like radio stations. We have a radio station here in third density, and 5th through 9th density has a different radio station and a different leadership. And one of the things that I talk about in some of my books is the difference in ethical systems between third density physical causes and effects versus 5th through 9th density reality by manifestation. They have a different set of beliefs about how you behave, and they have tried to teach their ethics to our leadership, and as a result, our leadership has become very ineffective in leading us in third density to better outcomes in third density in causes and effects. Our leaders are space cases and head trips, all about a creation is all one, and as above, so below, and there's no such thing as trying, and they have no concept of vows, promises, agreements, covenants, contracts. They have no concept of making social commitments because they're all in the same thought group. They all think alike, and anybody who doesn't think with everybody else is a criminal for their thoughts, okay? To them, harmony is their ultimate value, whereas here, truth has to be the ultimate value. If we want to get certain problems handled, you can't solve a problem till you know what's true about it. Ta-da! All right, so we have a cultural problem between the way we have to operate here with truth and causes and effects versus the way the Nibiruans operate with manifesting out of harmony. And then when you get to Nemesis, I don't even know what their thoughts are or how they operate. I haven't got a clue. I've never been there. I haven't been there yet. Maybe someday our souls will start migrating, back and forth between these different levels. I don't know if that's possible, but that's the problem we have with our leadership, who are following 5th through 9th dimensional ethics, and it's ineffective in a third dimensional physical space. They're wrecking our society with Nibiru ethics that don't work here. That's one of our problems. All the New Agers who say, as above, so below, and everything, and existence is only an illusion, and you are what you think about. All that stuff is for the higher dimensions, where causes and effects don't obtain.
And you made a comment one day, and then I'm looking at something on the Nemesis page, and I would like it to be explained. I also have given it to Thomas to put in the chat room. But before we go there, I remember we were having a discussion one day in a discussion with quite a few different people, and you did say something similar, and it confused me, so I asked you about it. Can we get to fifth density here on this planet, or the fifth dimension?
Some people have the ability to connect with the thought groups on Nibiru, but we don't have the physical energy available to manifest the way they do there.
Okay.
Because our particles are not vibrating at a high enough frequency to create matter just out of our thoughts, whereas up there they can't. They live on a holodeck. They
What's a holodeck?
live Star Trek holodeck, where whatever you think about is what you create. Okay, that's the way they live, is on a holodeck. And so in their leadership model, everybody has to be thinking along the same lines, otherwise they create chaos. So to them, thought controls are fundamental. They have to have thought controls there and keep everybody thinking together, because that way they manifest together.
Well, it sounds like it's absolutely mandatory. You wouldn't be able to be a part of it if you weren't.
Exactly right. And they execute people who don't think in harmony. Okay, it's a capital crime on Nibiru not to think in harmony with everybody else. And so the souls are the ones that don't think in harmony with everybody else. I don't know whether they go up to Nemesis or come down here, or I don't know what happens. But down here, what you think doesn't really matter. It doesn't even matter a hill of beans.
Because you're really making a great point. But I must question this for those who really are on a path of enlightenment right now. And let me see if I can word this correctly for you, Emily. Here, understood, okay, because we have, let's say that we have 7 billion people on the planet. Let's assume that for just a moment for the question.
Okay.
All right. And if 7 billion people were able to manifest with every thought, word, and deed that they had on a daily basis, which they say over 11,000 thoughts cross one's mind in a day, then we would all be dead, probably, if we were able to manifest all those thoughts.
No, because we can't manifest down here. We are subject to...
No. There's part two of the question. Part two of the question is, so what we are talking about on this planet right now is the age of Aquarius, the evolution of our species, the quantum leap that is about to change, the paradigm shift, the ability to really become a discerning species and to actually learn how to control thoughts, words, and deeds. Now, how would we ever evolve to that place, Emily, if we didn't try?
That's a cosmic top-down leadership problem, because we have to be led step by step into it. We can't. A kid in kindergarten can't dream up calculus. We just sitting here in cause and effect can't dream up enlightenment. It's got to come to us from somebody who knows. All right.
So we have to be taught. We have
to be taught. We have to be taught. Now, there are thoughts and harmonies and telepathies and beliefs and so forth and practices that we have the DNA capability to absorb and understand and realize and learn and practice. Like I learned how to be a telepath with the Monroe tapes, the hemisync tapes, and a tone generator. Okay, some skills are learnable and teachable, but some things aren't. I can't levitate. Can you levitate? Not lately.
You know what? Actually, that's a funny question, and it's for another day. But actually, I do know how to levitate furniture. Yes, I do. But it's very scientific based. And it's a very bizarre thing because we did it one time when we were on the road at a hotel with a manager and an attorney present, and they nearly fell out. They couldn't believe it. They thought we were, but there, yes, I can levitate. But
okay, but everybody can't levitate.
Everybody can if you do what this scientific theory actually has you do. It takes several people to do it. Nobody holds anything up, but it's just where placement is on tables, smaller things, not real super heavy things, and it's actually very scientific. It's easy to prove, but I know what you mean. When you say, I know what you're referring to. So,
it's an individual process, the ones who become aware and who school themselves and who practice and who do it. So it's not an everybody thing, and it's never going to be an everybody thing. We're all unique.
Something about the DNA earlier in the first hour of the show. You mentioned the DNA. Do we as a species in general, and I'm speaking in generalities, do we have limitations on our genetic codes?
Well, of course we do. Just like your computer, if it's running DOS, it has a different set of limitations than if it's an Apple or if it's a Linux. Your operating system code, is what it is, and not only that, but your experience alters your DNA code. And so you have what you inherited, and then your experience evolves it, generally degrades it. When your code's evolving, it's generally deteriorating for a reason that an adaptation is better for this environment than that environment. So yes, DNA code is highly individualized now, but it's traceable by race. Okay. Now, out in space, what I notice is they have all the same races we do. They have the blacks and the Asians and the Semites and the whites and the blondes out there too. I've seen very few reptoids, almost no grays at all where I've looked. And the blacks are very prolific, and generally they're in very harsh environments where a lot of rules are necessary, and they do very well out there. There are a lot of blacks on Nemesis, a lot of them.
Okay.
And, yeah.
Okay. And and with that in mind as well, Emily, because it's absolutely fascinating, how are we ever to expand our DNA then? How are, make use of more than two strands, or make use of more of our brain? Being that
That's not what we do. That's not what we do. We're not in charge of that. We're not in charge of that.
That's not ours? We can't do it ourselves?
No. We cannot expand it. Expansion comes with the process of ascension, which is a gift that comes upon us from a cosmic entity. Ascension is what happens to a human who gets ascended into the higher realms. We're not in charge of that. There's no way a person can ascend themselves. It's not going to happen because there's an enormous amount of energy involved. Yeah, a person's got to essentially be exploded into.
Gotcha. And I'm going to address something right before the break. We're coming up on a break. To the looking back, Emily, this is such a fascinating conversation because now we're getting really deep into the critical mass situation that's happening on our planet when it reaches the critical mass. Okay, that's what I'm picking up from you, and we're also really pulling from the roots, if you will, of belief systems that have existed on this planet since day one, really, and it gets really tricky for those who might be afraid or might be really working towards unifying. I've heard the argument that there is no way this planet's going to unify, and then of course I'm one of those people that say, yes, we are. Yes, we are. We will.
We will.
All right. And people who say that is impossible for a number of reasons. I like the idea that we have external help or aid, but have always. See, not just now or 2,000 years ago when Christianity was developed, or 3,000 years before that, or 12,000 years with the Mayan. It seems as though we have always had some help from what appears to be our creators. That's what I'm thinking.
But only periodically. They're not always breathing down our neck. And that's one of the reasons that our history that we've been given is so impoverished, because the help that we've had has been periodic. About every 3,000 years, they show up and they do some things, and then they leave for a while, and then they show up and do some things, and then they leave for a while. And that history is in the Sumerian records,
right.
and it's in the Bible and in the OSB and in the Urantia book in completely different language and different perspectives. But it gives you the realization that a planet, yes, is going through a process of social, civil development gradually. I heard there was somebody on LinkedIn talking about ETs coming down here to eat people. And I said to her, that's completely inappropriate right now, because we're in the period of civil development. We're in between the implementation of law and the implementation of ethics. These are civil problems. And cannibalism belonged 100,000 years ago. What's it doing now? That's out of the cycle of learning how to be more civilized. Okay, in the Sumerian records, there are two lines of thoughts, and I bring this out very, very in a very detailed manner in "Come, Let Us Make Man in Our Image." There's the Enki way of dealing with, of administering a slave planet, and there's the Enlil way of administering a slave planet. And this is a slave planet, let's face it, because we're all mortal. We all just come and go. We all just live short lives and go. Nobody stays here very long, okay? And in the Enki method, according to the Sumerian records translated by Sitchin and others, Enki followed the Emerald Covenant after the Lyran Wars, in which race is holy, ideology is sacred, and life comes third, so that calling whole populations for racial problems or ideological problems is legitimate. And what Enki has always advocated was total permissiveness in the population. They can sacrifice their children, they can torture their whatever enemies, they can do whatever they want. But at the end of a dispensation, particularly the end of a galactic year, a 26,000 year galactic year, at the end of the dispensation, all of the errant, inharmonious cultures are called genocide. Okay, and that's why Anunnaki is actually Anunnaki, because they have been known for doing a lot of culling on this planet. From the second tier, okay, they've been teaching and training our leadership to do this genocidal culling, which comes out of the Emerald Covenant from Lyra. Now, Enlil had a different idea. And Enlil, actually the name Enlil is the Hebrew Tetragrammaton, Yahweh, flipped over from the left. It's just the name Yahweh written backwards. Okay, and Enlil was the prophet of Yahweh, and he had a different way to administer this same slave planet. And his way was by self-administration of law, which we got as the Mosaic Law, and which comes down to us in the 1689 Bill of Rights from England, the Magna Carta, which is a set of behavioral rules. You know, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, you don't lie, you don't do this, you don't do that. And it's self-administered. The people themselves consent to behave in certain ways, And if they don't behave in certain ways, they're judged and they receive certain penalties. And, that's the Enlil method of rating a slave planet. And I'm getting another call, and they're just going to have to go away. So that's the tactic that has been going on for 200,000 years, the Enlil method versus the Enki method. So we always have republics that have representative government fighting against top-down dictatorships and hierarchies that are pyramids where one guy at the top knows everything and all the people at the bottom are dumb as doorknobs. We're still doing the same thing. Nothing has changed for 200,000
right,
years.
and there does seem to be a commonality about that as well. And there are a couple of questions that I'm going to put together here as well. One person is asking, and let me finish through it because you mentioned something about this earlier. Is Roxy, does that mean yoga and food can alter our ascension? And another person asked a very similar question, what do you expect to take place in the near future? And then puts ascension into parentheses again. So let's go there. We already went there, for those of you who didn't hear it. But as far as ascension goes, where do we get this idea of ascension? And are we planning as a species on ascending? And what exactly does that mean?
Well, what I know about it personally is that it has a lot to do with a personal relationship between a human and a galactic cosmic deity. Okay, Jesus ascended. Elijah ascended. Because they were considered to be worthy of going up to one of the higher domains. I don't know anything about ascending a whole race or a whole planet. That doesn't make sense to me because ascension is based on the individual souls having the wisdom and responsibility and awareness and accountability to function at a different level. It's an individual privilege. It's an individual reward for service for some cosmic deity. I know that the Buddhists and the Hindus had some experience with it. We know that every once in a while a human being will instantly, spontaneously combust and burn and disappear. I have seen a picture of a guy walking down a path and poof, he's gone.
Spontaneous combustion.
Spontaneous combustion. That is how ascension works.
Is that right?
That's how it works, yes.
So you don't ascend and stay here. You ascend and
when you ascend, you're gone, baby. Because you're no longer made of the same elements or at the same frequency that you were before. You've gone upstairs to work with the executives.
Gotcha.
Okay.
And is there a confusion going on the planet then as far as, this is a really big topic matter, ascension, vibrating higher instead of lower in the density because we are in a dense place. And there must be something to it all as far as if we unify the consciousness and raise the consciousness, then raise the field. You can't do that?
Don't unify consciousness. We're all individuals and we're all unique. Unifying consciousness at this level is just totally out of the picture.
At this level. At this level.
No, we're dealing with cause and effect down here. Okay.
Gotcha.
And that's what we do.
Well, okay, Emily, in all fairness, I know exactly what you mean because I think about it all the time when I see people on Facebook and you bring up one or two, things to float around out there for people to discuss and give their opinions. And before long, it's as though you throw a bone into a pack of wild dogs because then everybody's fighting, everybody's arguing. So believe me, can't even imagine unifying the consciousness at this level. I agree.
Yeah. Okay, at the fifth to ninth dimensional level where they have leadership, that knows how to express harmony and cultivate harmony, and harmony is their value, and their entire social norm is harmony. That's where you're talking about unifying ascension. Okay. But not down here. Down here, we're walking one foot at a time, and we're trying to learn, even though we're in all kinds of scattered places, what's true. What's true? That's our problem here. We have to determine what's true and help our families to determine what's true, so we can plan. Without knowing what's true, you can't plan. You don't know what to buy when you go to the grocery store.
Right.
That's where we're at, a different place from the people trying to ascend before they're even ready to walk.
Okay, and we are a very young species. We're a young planet. We're just getting started here. So on that end of the spectrum, I completely can agree. And should we perhaps, maybe this is a better way of asking the question, should we be working towards unification?
No.
Or should we be working towards something different?
I think we should be working toward taking care of each other in a time of great uncertainty. I think we should be working to create communities of trust and families of trust, and to educate ourselves to get beyond and work around the lies and deceit and the perfidy and the fraud that we have coming at us from our leaders. We have a different job right now. We got to figure out how to survive with the leadership we've got.
And with that in mind, Emily, it wouldn't the biggest sword we could carry at this point be knowledge, to be able to actually not take down, that's not the word I'm looking for, but to put the governments of the world and religions of the world, you know, how do we get to non-compliance? How do we get there?
Well, in the Soviet Union in 1989, the people showed up at the Kremlin, and they stood there and they said, "We've had enough. We don't want to do this anymore. We just don't want to do this anymore." And the soldiers looked at them and they said, "You know something? We don't want to do this anymore either." And that's all we have to do. Show up and say, "I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want the lies anymore. I don't want the fraud. I don't want the profiteering. I don't want the games. I just, I just want to do something else. Let's do something else."
And what about those who believe that, quote unquote, that they're trying to kill us?
Who's trying to kill us?
No, yeah, right. Yeah, I agree. But activists and many people think that they, and who is they? Illuminati, government, NWO, whatever you want to call it.
Well, yes, they're following the Yankee line.
And that they're trying to kill us like it's a slow kill, like the Georgia Guidestones and so forth.
It's a fast kill. It's famine. It's pestilence. It's bad vaccines. It's Codex Alimentarius.
Okay.
It's GMO in the food. It's not slow kill, babe. It's fast kill, and that is the Yankee method that we need to find a way to overturn.
All right, so that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to say. How do we get around it when the food, air, water is poison?
Okay, we have to see to it that wherever we are, our food, water, and air isn't poisoned. So if we have to move, if we have to mobilize, if we have to move in with families somewhere else or friends somewhere else or go somewhere else or be somewhere else, right now there's no safe place in Japan. I don't know of anybody who's safe in Japan because of Fukushima. And they want to have the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. It's not going to happen.
I know. It's just, it's moronic, isn't it?
Well, it's propaganda. It's more the same propaganda. And so that's the game that our leadership is playing with us. Our leadership is playing a game with us. They make these steps and they say these things, and we're supposed to react, and we're problem, reaction, solution. They create these false flag events time after time after time, and we're supposed to react and get scared and legislate against anybody having guns, which hasn't happened yet, and legislate against the internet, which hasn't quite happened yet. And we're supposed to get scared and commit to staying with the program of the Oval Office. And we don't. We can do like they did in the Soviet Union and in Iceland and now in Poland and say, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do it anymore. I'm tired of it.
Well, and I think that we are tired of it, and it's getting pretty apparent when you see people out in the street. There's a global revolution going on, and I think it could very possibly be a first. It certainly is a first that I've observed, as far as many countries getting out there and saying we're just not doing this anymore. Tell me more about. Come, let us make man in our image. We, humanity, are more than we knew. Wisdom of the Yah series, your book, out on Amazon.com. Lovely book color. I love the blue. It's
That's
fantastic.
That's the surface of Nibiru.
Yeah, I was going to say, is that the surface of Nibiru? Fabulous.
Surface of Nibiru.
Wonderful. And, again, the book is, about the Anunnaki ETs who have influenced our planet for 200,000 years. And it appears that the book it has 40 full color plates to show facts which conventional histories conceal, and nearly 400 photo images reproduced in the book. That sounds absolutely fabulous, and
turned out gorgeous.
Oh, I've got to get a copy of it, and it's a very affordable price. And I must say that the photo of you by your biography, and there is a photo of Emily Cragg right here on the same page. I'll put this in the chat room one more time. What a lovely photo of you, Emily.
That wasn't taken too long ago. Well, I just got this in the mail today.
You did? And are you so thrilled?
I hoped I would get it. And I called the publisher, and I wept for joy. It is so beautiful. They did such a beautiful job on this book. And so it's my proudest possession at the moment. And I notice that Amazon is discounting it deeply, which is very nice for them to do.
Yes. So yes, it's very nice. And you've also got other books here, too, the deal with civil history of man and the promotion of leadership by consent to truth. Of course, your book, The Path to Orion and the Pilgrimage of Mankind. So, when you go to this page that I put into the chat room, people, you can also check out Emily's other books, and we also have those all advertised on The Truth Denied because we do. Oh, sure, because every time you come on the show, you've got, you got a book. Let's see. The Thunderbird has a question for you. Sounds to me like she may be mixing up Enki and Enlil. Just to be certain, could she please clarify her characterizations of each once again? So he names two people, Enki and then Enlil, Enlil.
Okay. Enki and Enlil are both Anunnaki who come from King Anu's line. Okay. Nanar is the son of Enlil, and Marduk is the son of Enki. And they have different philosophies of governance. Enki believes in permissiveness, and the Luciferian and satanic lines of philosophy come from Enki. They're permissive, and they allow violence, and they allow all kinds of addictions and stuff. But at the end of a dispensation, they call everybody that didn't measure up to their standard of behavior. And Lil and Nanar, his son, did it differently. They proposed laws so that the people on the planet would be self-administering in matters of justice, and that included capital punishment. It included executing criminals. And so the Jewish line has always been very harsh in their interpretation of justice. They were particularly harsh on Jesus, because his crime was merely to advocate a different form of government, which they interpreted as sedition. So that's the two methods. Now, AnkiSpeaks.com is the site where, what's his name, Sasha Lesson, PhD, presents the Sumerian records in a very presentable format, and it's very easy to find out a lot of information about how the Anunnaki operated 200,000 years ago. But he tends to prefer and advocate the Enki method of permissiveness with genocide. And I prefer to advocate the Enlil method of law with consent. So that's the basic issues there between the two of them. Now, I remember my life as the daughter of King Ninar, and my brother was Utu, and my sister was Ayinana. Ayinana always used to dominate me, and she doesn't anymore. So I had a life in that culture and in that bloodline that I can pull memories from, which has really, really helped me in doing this cosmic anthropology book. And that's what Come Let Us Make Man is. It's cosmic anthropology, and it takes us back 200,000 years instead of the measly 6,000 years that the Bible deals with.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah, that's always sort of not made too much sense. When anthropologists started to dig around, let's say, like the Great Pyramid of Giza, and start talking about, well, it's not 6,000 years old, it's 10, then it's 14, then it's 24,000 years old. That timeline got really shaken up at that point, because they're, you know, what you just said. We've been taught that we've only been hanging out here for 5,000 or 6,000 years.
Well, wait till you look at page 14 in the book, and you see the pictures of giant skeletons where the humans were 36 feet tall.
Yes, and the giants are really coming into play right now. I'm glad you've got that, because the giants, you know, Fritz Zimmerman, you know, all these people in Ohio that have, it's, you know, we've got people right here in the United States. We've got burial grounds full of these giants, you know, and
really?
And covering it up here too. Yeah.
In Mexico, they had a great big land collapse, a landslide, and down below the level of the road, it exposed the skull of a human, okay? And so it's a picture of people walking by this skull. It's the size of a Volkswagen, the skull. Mm-hmm. You could have climbed in it, okay? That human skull was 6 feet in diameter.
Revolution Radio proudly presents live from Phoenix, Arizona, the Truth Denied Talk Radio with host Roxy Lopez. Join us here for topics you won't hear about on mainstream news, such as chemtrails, GMOs, nutrition, and conspiracy facts regarding your personal sovereignty. Humanity is 7 billion strong. We are the majority. And now, live from the Valley of the Sun, your host, Roxy Lopez.
Hey, it's the Truth Tonight Talk Radio. It's Roxy Lopez. I am at not even in a remote area enough to do this show right now, and we're going to bring in our guest this evening. Hopefully, I'll get through this in the next half hour. My apologies. I'm not even. I had an emergency today, so.
Hello.
and my phone is ringing off the hook. And
hello.
Your guest has joined you.
Okay, our guest is joining us. Thank you. And like I said, Emily, will you do me a favor? Hi, Emily. I had an emergency, and I'm not even at home right now, so I don't have any of the notes or anything like that for the show. It's the first time this has ever happened. So I'm here in the middle of a crowded place getting prescriptions, not for me, for my animals. Yep. And, I had it's one of those days. And so what's happening is they called me on my cell phone at the station. And what I want to do is I want to set this up for you so that you can take off for probably the next 20 minutes if you can, and go ahead and let's cover this topic, which is, of course, why disclosure is such a non-disclosure, I should say, is such a dangerous thing for our entire planet. And you really have a good feel for that, Emily. So could you explain it to us why it's what the cost of non-disclosure is for us?
Sure, I'm delighted, Roxy, and sure, I can talk about it for half an hour, actually a lot longer than that. And so you just deal with what you have to deal with, and I appreciate your giving me the opportunity to wax whatever. And thank you for inviting me. Sure, I love to come here.
Absolutely, Emily. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show. And for the guests who are listening, the listeners who are tuning in tonight, you have heard Emily before. Emily, you've talked about some really fascinating ideas when it comes to our planet, and you've even addressed two suns, you've addressed the moon and so forth. But let's go straight for it. And why don't we go ahead and discuss really what is so important, that set this up for us, Emily, so that
profits off wars and revolutions. We still have a modicum of social obligations, and people still, despite the lack of governmental responsibility and accountability, people still mostly act in a civil manner. The people, us ourselves, have halted the slide into annihilation. And Armageddon may not come now because people themselves and ourselves and us and our families do not want it, okay? When Russia was able to outmaneuver Obama on Syria and shut down Obama's war, that shows that the people don't want war. And it was a major victory because Russia is a broken mass of ruin, and the U.S. is still a dangerous hierarchy. So David knocked out Goliath once more. So the consequence of non-disclosure is that the people of the world have become wiser than their leaders. The people,
is that right?
The people say, hell no, we don't want any more wars, especially wars for profits. But now we, the people, must catch up with what's actually true, what's happening, what's going on, and this is a challenge. And this is where we are right now, figuring out what's actually going on. What's going on in the sky is that astronomers are so busy looking at their computer sky maps, they don't look at the sky much, okay? I worked as a digital image corporate trainer for Xerox Corporation some years ago. And what is true is scientists have not been trained to know the difference between a photograph and a digital image. And the difference is a digital image is a veritable movie of data. It's not a single image. There's a movie in every digital image that astronomers know nothing about. Now, satellites take thousands upon thousands of images, but the scientists looking at the images do not know how to interpret pixels. So they miss most of the content in the images, and they believe whatever they've been told the images mean. Now, at this point, if you start looking at the images and start looking at the background, the images don't make any sense at all, because physical data that I'm getting does not verify or validate the current astronomical model, not one bit. What I see does not make sense if you're thinking about the blue-white sun that we called Old Sol, with the Soho LASCO satellites parked around it, and the mantle is gone, and the top is all black, and it's got a crack in it, and it's being hit by comets all the time. That's not what's going on in our sky, baby. That's not the same at all. So I'm also what the U.S. government labels as a remote viewer, okay? And they pay people to do this, honest to God. I'm a remote listener, okay? And wait, since when? Since administrative codes and corporate statutes took over and established privatized revenue-enhancing statute agencies where civil law used to function in the past. And so what happens to us is the same thing that happened to Rome. Society's social attainments have ceased. Keeping the law becomes the only obsession of law. Tolerating vice and disease and famine become popular. Caring becomes a voluntary act, not a social one. Survival reverts to random acts of kindness. And coping becomes problematical because nobody can plan anything. Manifesting prosperity occurs for predatory individuals who compete and climb over each other for profits and profits. Okay, and let me talk about profits and profits, okay, because they're the same thing. The profit that a company gets in money is the same that the profit, P-R-O-P-H-E-T, that is created in a church group, because the prophet is the one making predictions that come true. So instead of having wisdom for the past century, what we get is tricks and rules and harassment and proceedings and abuse and assumptions and propaganda and fraud. These things take over official functions. And the effect is people are not allowed to realize what they need to know in order to convey social values and safety and harmony and progress. Okay. And this is what the media has done in spades, especially since the 1990s. The mainstream media decided that news belongs in the entertainment department and needs to generate revenue, so the quality of the history that's written every day in our newspapers has been deteriorating ever since that decision was made. So the real function of the media is to inform people so we can plan. So what was possible, what could have happened, is that the anarchy caused by corporate corruption would result in chaos. And what is chaos? In Scripture, it said every man's hand is against his neighbor, okay? And war is everywhere, okay? But for me, I'm looking around, it's been a century of anarchy, and we're not in chaos. It didn't happen. Every man's hand was not raised against his neighbor. And recently, when Obama blinked and the war against Syria was averted, David downed Goliath once more. Napoleon was routed once more, this time by Vladimir Putin. And the empire once more is thwarted. I was trained by Monroe Institute tapes and programs and a tone generator to participate in telepathic sharing in thought groups. Thus, I have been able to hear what the guys out there in the cosmos think is happening to our planet at this time, okay? And, you know, telepathy is nothing but prayer, okay? That's what prayer is telepathy. So today when I get data that makes absolutely no empirical sense, I put on my remote listener hat and I yell out as if I were praying to God, hey, you guys, what's going on out there? The sun's got land mass around it and the moon's bathed in ultraviolet lights instead of being in black and empty space. Hey, what's up? And that's when I get an explanation from out there about how Earth is now configured with Nibiru and companioned with Nemesis. There are some links in the chat room, okay?
And I'll get them in there too as well. Again,
all right.
Periodically during the show. You can point at which ones you'd like people to follow along with.
They're just for browsing. They're just for browsing. You can browse those whenever while I'm just talking.
But continue.
Okay. So anyway, what I hear from out there as a remote listener is not what is in today's newspapers and magazines, believe me. And the hundreds and hundreds of webcam images and NASA images that I re-render from Western U.S. observatories confirm and proclaim that what the subjected ETs are telling me telepathically is what is true. Not Scientific American, not NASA, not ESA, not JAXA, nor Sky and Telescope, nor National Geographic. No, their beautiful, slick, photographic illustrations are no longer real. I'm qualified to speak as a journalist because my graduate degree from the communication department of a major university is in group problem solving and conflict analysis. So I have the credentials to speak out, even if I am technically retired at this point. So don't tell me I don't know what I'm talking about or that I don't have authority to speak out against deceit and lies. Media are spouting mythologies and complicated layers of false information. They're one and all telling fables to the public, made up stuff. We the people know, because we see UFI in the skies all the time, that we are affected by extraterrestrials, even though we're not allowed to know the history of those ET interventions. History is there, okay? There are the Sumerian records, and Zechariah Sitchin isn't the only translator. There's the Bible, Genesis chapter 6, and the book of Ezekiel. There's two other books with the signature of the sovereign.
We can understand. Okay.
Sure, will do. And we'll talk about the consequences and costs and effects of the non-disclosure of ET life. And why did it happen? Well, basically, historically, non-disclosure exists because of treaties that Western governments signed with the Anunnaki and the Greys since the 1950s. There was the Greada Treaty in 1954 with Eisenhower, and there's another treaty, the Tau 9, that was signed in 2006. Other ET cultures may have some input into those treaties. We've never seen the treaties. They've never been publicized to our people, so we don't know what's in them. Okay, but what I can see from just what's in the alternative media is that other cultures besides the Anunnaki don't seem to have any negotiating stance with our government. They're just onlookers. Now, since about the end of the Civil War, things have been changing. You know, our republic only really lasted a little less than 100 years. And true wisdom is being eradicated through a process of stupefaction and top-down policies and procedures. So ignorance is what leaders pander to because ignorance is profitable. They like money that ignorance produces. So when wisdom began to get plowed under by leadership, because they were stupefying all of us so we would follow their rules, what usually happens next is anarchy takes over, and leaders lead from behind curtains of secrecy rather than openly. Western civil culture, especially English-speaking culture, have been in anarchy since World War I. And what created anarchy was when the corporate conglomerates began ruling from behind corporate curtains. They were not detected nor corrected, nor lawfully even correctable. And what this means is certain positive features of leadership have been missing from our civil society for a while now. Officially today, there is no acknowledgement or accountability for official outcomes or effects of legislation. Tsunami on Japan? Too bad. Okay? Gulf of Mexico polluted? Too bad. Collateral damage to children in war? Too bad. Water table pollution by fracking? Oh well. Poisoning the soil by chemtrails? Shrug. That's all we get. Federalists legislate laws and more laws and more laws. There are 2 to 3 million federal statutes now, but they never record the results or effects or outcomes of legislation, and neither does the media report on problems that legislation creates. Why not? Because by law, industry and corporations are exempt from being indicted for violating common laws against harm